Hello, children. Now, I know normally when I'm up to speak, I usually tell some funny story about when I was growing up, right? That's the normal. Well, today it's going to be a little different. Today, we're talking about Peru. So I thought I would give you a little information about Peru, of where we went. So first, I need a visual representation, okay? And a little bit of information. How many of you guys know what the tallest mountain on the East Coast is? You know how tall it is and which mountain it is? Any of you older kids? Steve knows. Steve, which is it?
I don't know the exact height of it. It's Mount Mitchell.
Mount Mitchell. We live near did you guys know you live near the tallest mountain on the entire East Coast? Mount Mitchell, it's a little over 6,000 feet. Okay? So I need a person to represent Mount Mitchell for me, and that person is going to be Evelyn. So come on up here, Evelyn. You're going to stand right here, okay? This is 6,000 feet tall, okay? All right. Now, how many of you guys know what the tallest mountain in Colorado is? Or on the West Coast? About 14,000 feet are in Colorado, okay? So we're going to have Rylan be 14,000 feet. Okay, so here's Mount Mitchell. Here's the Rockies, okay? Now, Andrew, come stand next to Rylan here, up here. Okay, Andrew's a little bit shorter. We'll say Andrew's the tree line there in Colorado, okay? So, kids, the tree line is anything below the tree line, which is about 11,000 feet, things will grow. Anything above the tree line, things don't grow. There's no trees, it's all tundra, okay? So, Mount Mitchell, below tree line, lots of trees on it, 6,000 feet. This is about 11,000 feet, okay? And this is the top of the mountain. All right, you guys can go back to seat. Now, where we were at, in Cusco, we were at 11,100 feet. Guess how tall the trees were at 11,100 feet in Peru? I just told you there's a tree line, right? It's 11,000 feet. Not in Peru. In Peru, the trees were hundreds of feet tall at 11,000 feet. At 12,000 feet, they were hundreds of feet tall. There were things growing still at 12,000 feet. Okay, now this is where it gets important. Now I got one more fact for you, and then we'll bring it all together. How many potatoes do you think are grown in Peru? A lot. Okay, give me a number. How many different types of potatoes? What do you think? Just 90? Okay. How many do you think? 4? Okay. 5? There's a little bit more than 90, we'll say that. A lot more than 90. Any other guesses? 1,000. More than 1,000. Different varieties of potatoes. There are 4,000 different varieties of potatoes grown in Peru. There's about 100 grown in the United States, different varieties. Now, there are 7 types, with the red, yellow, in the United States. There's about 400 different types in Peru. But genetically, 4,000 different types of potatoes. 5 of those types of potatoes only grow above the tree line. They grow at 13,000 feet. You grow these potatoes, and the thing that's so unique and great about these types of potatoes is these types of potatoes are the ones that an entire civilization was built on. So the Incan Empire lived at that elevation, 11,000 feet and up. The Incan Empire survived on these potatoes because they could be dried and kept for many, many, many years, up to 10, 15 years. They could be kept and stored and then eaten later. So the lesson I want you to think about is, even though there's different types of landscapes, there's different things, God has provided so many wonderful natural treasures for us that if we know where to look and know what to look for, we can survive in any kind of environment because God has provided that for us. Okay? And just a little information on Peru. All right, you guys can go back to your seats. All right. I found that fascinating. Sorry, I just had to share it. When our tour guide said, I think he said 400 different types and there's 4,000 varieties, that was amazing to me. And it was all growing above 13,000 feet, which you can't breathe at that point. I found that out. I tried to run and about died. But anyways, all right, let's say a quick prayer and then we'll begin with our sermon. Heavenly Father, thank you again for giving us this day, giving us the Sabbath that we can come apart and we can worship you. Thank you for providing this group with the opportunity to go to Peru. Thank you for providing this church that gave us the opportunity to go to Peru, that we could learn more about you and also see and teach people around the world about you, that we could just make connections and friends that we can hope to see in heaven one day. Lord, I just pray that you will be with us, be with this group of people as we present your word. Help it to be a blessing to those that hear it. In Jesus' name, amen. So today is going to be a little different for our sermon. I'm not going to be giving the sermon. The mission group is going to give the sermon. I'm going to let Brooklyn come up and kind of introduce what we did, and then we'll go and each person will give their testimony about what they learned there in Peru.
Good morning, church. I had asked Brad if I could go first just to give you some facts about Peru and then tell a little bit how we got there. I mean, of all the places in the world, why Peru? Miss Maria, our guide for half the time we were there, she was telling me that Maranatha has been in Peru for about 7 years. And the way Maranatha is set up, they go to the conferences and ask, if there's a need, and then they draw up a contract based on those needs as with Maranatha, like, okay, we want you to build this many churches in this area, in this conference, and this many churches in this area, in this conference, and this many churches in this area, in this conference. And then when Maranatha fulfills those contracts, if there's no more needs, when they build those churches, then they move out and go to a different place. So right now, they've been there about 7 years, and Miss Maria was telling me that's the longest that Maranatha has been in one place. She said it was highly unusual, and the longest that she had known it to be in one place, in one country. And they're starting now. She's like, we're starting to see a shift into Paraguay, which is a nearby country. And so I looked it up. In the South Peru Union Mission, there's 1,252 churches. In the North Peru Mission, there's 348 churches, and these are Seventh-day Adventist churches. And then in Central Peru, there's 99 churches, bringing the total in Peru to 1,699 churches. And specifically in the area that we went, the pastor of our church, he was telling us that there, under his care, he has 25 churches that he tends to. And he said correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but 13 of them were in as equal or worse off shape than the one that we were working on. And so Why Peru? Well, first of all, I was looking to on our last trip that we did last year when we went with Praying Pelican, and it was a wonderful experience. We did get to go visit a Seventh-day Adventist church, but we were partnered with the evangelical church, and so this year we all shared the same core want to partner with and do something with our Seventh-day Adventist brothers and sisters. So I called multiple ministries trying to get information and a place that we could go on a mission trip. And Maranatha finally was the only one that got back to me. And we were looking at their calendar, and they were like, well, what does your team want to do? And I was like, well, we'll do anything that is needed, but we also are wanting to do hands-on. The kids really want to do construction. And so he's like, great, we've got all of these trips. Well, he would name off a date, and for whatever reason, whether it be school or our VBS here or something in our church, those dates wouldn't work out. And so we settled on this one that was happening in June, and we were supposed to go to Paraguay. And, we're like, yes, we're going to Paraguay. And so we got all excited. And then Maranatha called me back and said, well, one of our volunteers has retired and come back to the States. And so we don't have anybody there. We have people there, but we don't have enough people there to support the other groups that are planning on coming or leaving at that time to have enough staff to guide your group while you're there. So we're going to have to cancel that trip. And I was like, well, I thought this was what the Lord wanted. I thought we were going to Paraguay. And so I was like, well, we'll try to come up with a plan B. So I was praying about it. Lord, wherever you want us to land, that's where we want to go. And so I said, we're running out of time here. We're running out of summer. These kids are going to be, some of them are starting college, and that's not as flexible as grade school. So, we've got to get it done in this summer, or all these kids, they're not going to get to go on their trip that they worked so hard for. And so I said, we can go to these places in the United States. I named off some that I was seeing on their list. I was like, however, if we can make this happen, I really want to make it happen. And I just prayed about it. I said, Lord, take us to where you want us to be. And Mr. Lysandra, the gentleman at Maranatha, called me back, I think 3 weeks later, and he was like, oh, we got another trip lined up. We're going, if you can go to Paraguay the first week in, I think it was August 7th, August 7th through the 19th, we can do this thing. And I was like, great, that seems to work with everybody in my group. And so I went on their thing, and I was looking, and I was like, oh, it says Peru. I'm like, he must have just got confused because we were going to Paraguay, but now we're going to Peru. So I come, and I told the group, I was like, we're now going to Peru, yay! And, we got all excited again. And then I was talking to Mr. Lysandro, trying to work out the details and get everything lined up. And I said Peru, and he was like, wait, I thought you were going to Paraguay. And I was like, I thought there was a misunderstanding. I was like, but yes, if you want us to go to Paraguay, that's where we'll go. I said, I was just looking on your calendar, and for those dates that you gave us, it says Peru. And he says, well, actually, that's a private, a group, the Monticello Church, they've planned this mission trip, and it's a private group that's going. And he said, but if you want me to ask, I can ask if you can join them on their trip. Otherwise, just your church will be going to Paraguay. And I was like, well, that would be wonderful. We would love to not only go and meet Seventh-day Adventists in Paraguay or Peru, but we would like to work alongside Seventh-day Adventist brothers and sisters and make lasting friendships with them that aren't necessarily from Wilkesboro Seventh-day Adventist Church. And so he was like, great, I will ask. Well, he reached out, and we didn't hear anything. He was like, okay, I'm getting nervous. We're getting close to our deadline here. If we don't hear anything from them, we're just going to go ahead with the trip to Paraguay. And if we go to Paraguay, you have to have a minimum of 15 people to go. That's what Maranatha likes. To bring to get the most, have the most effectiveness, I guess, as far as building and construction and manpower. So a team of 15 people minimum. I was like, okay, well right now we've only got 6 people. And so I come back and I was asking, and different people I'd ask for one reason or the other, it wouldn't work out. And I was like, Lord, this is in your hands, wherever you want us to go and whoever you want us to go with. Well, 2 days later, Mr. Lysandro called me back and he said, Brooklyn, I heard from the pastor, and they are thrilled to have you go with them. And then in talking with the pastor, Pastor Roy Robinson from the Monticello Church, come to find out they were struggling to get their numbers to go on their trip too. So God brought us together, 7 of them and 6 of us. That only makes 13, but Maranatha was gracious and said, close enough, we're going to do this thing. And it was a wonderful, wonderful trip, and I'm going to wait to share that impact on me at the end. But this team, they were wonderful. They worked so hard, and they put their whole heart into it. And I know last week when I did Children's Story, I used this verse, but for me it was so real. And I wanted to, Exodus 25, if you want to turn with me. Let me get there. Exodus 25, 1 and 2. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel that they bring me an offering of every man that giveth it willing with his heart. Ye shall take my offering. And this is the offering which you shall take of them, gold and silver and brass, blue and purple and scarlet, fine linen and goat's hair, ram skins dyed red, badger skins, shittim wood, oil from the light, spices from anointing oil and for sweet incense, onyx stones and stones to be set in the ephod and in the breastplate, and let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them. And in Peru, that's what we were doing. We were building a sanctuary and seeing those people bring their labors of love, their sacrifices to come and work alongside of us, and their pride in seeing their church being built. It made it just so much more beautiful. And at this time, I think we're going to have our video, and then Audrey, it'll be Tutoka.
When strength is gone, you're the one who calls me on. You are the life, you are the fight that's in my soul. Oh, your resurrection power burns like fire in my heart. When waters rise, I lift my eyes up to your throne. We are more than conquerors through Christ. You have overcome this world, this life. We will not bow to sin or to shame. We are defiant in your name. You are the fire that cannot
this is something that is about a month late, but we'll do our best in this short time. All right. But before we begin, I'd like to start with a verse. In Matthew 18, verse 3, it says, "Assuredly I say to you, unless you are converted and become as little children, you will by no means enter the kingdom of heaven." Now, heading on this mission trip, I believe that most of us, or me, thought that this would be similar to our previous mission trip in Peru, or in Puerto Rico. After all, it was the same process. We would build a church, we would have it with its members, and occasionally take tours when we had the chances. However, I believe the differences began when we learned that we were going to be hosting VBS there. It was going to be about 2 VBSs over the course of 2 Sabbaths, which means we would be doing one in the evening and one in the morning across for the 2 weeks. Because that meant that we would have an interesting experience with the local children, that was a little nerve-wracking because none of us spoke Spanish there, and we did not know how the children would react to our way of doing VBS. So in my head, the only times that we'd be seeing children would be in the days of VBS. And I'm sure that when you hear the speeches that will be coming up, they will usually be all about the children, because that was actually one of the main stories of our trip. Our first day at the work site, it went rather smoothly, laying brick, and we learned as we went with the Maranatha workers. And it was just like we suspected it to be. Nothing was rather completely new. And then came the first of many, a young boy named Tony. And it was actually Brooke who invited him over and started talking to him while he watched us work. And it was her who taught him the ninja game, or ninja, strike a pose. And soon later, then it came Jos and Camilo and Austin, and by our 3rd work day, there was about 7 or 8 kids all crowded around to watch us work and beg us to play games. Well, thank you. Most were shy, and it was quite difficult to talk to them when they would try asking things in Spanish. You would have them come up to us and say a full rapid sentence, and we're just standing there blank-faced, not knowing what to say. But it is also amazing how just simple gestures and the basic words that we knew could still get through to people despite the language barrier. Now, for me, I didn't interact too much with the children. I was more focused on laying the brick, but anytime I would go and see what Abby or Hadley or one of our friends from the other church, Dave, were doing with the children, it was all full of small Spanish lessons, laughter, teasing, and fun despite the humid and hot weather. Now, VBS had been done there before in Peru by other missionaries that had come down to that church. But I'm pretty sure it can be agreed upon that our church never has a standard Bible school. So we started the first Sabbath day with the 2 stories of Daniel in the morning and the 3 Hebrews in the evening, as a standard Wilkesboro-style VBS with crafts, games, and the story. We had the kids make the lions and instruments, and they got to interact with the story through the play and through their crafts. Since we had time between the 2 VBS sessions, most kids would stay behind after the sermon to play and talk, and they were full of life and joy and genuine excitement over the event. And that filled us with a lot more confidence when we went on to the second story of Rahab and Joshua the next Sabbath. I'm pretty sure I had the pictures in there of that VBS, but Brooke had handed out small little stamps to the children as small little prizes. And not 5 minutes later, when we were doing our crafts, I turn around and I see Hadley and Abby covered in the stamps all across their faces, across their arms, and the kids were still going, just putting it peppered all over their faces. Now, it was easy to remember why or what we were there for, because it was work. It was labor to build the foundation of a church that would be used for many years to come. But by seeing the people and interacting with them, it made it easier to remember why we were there. Not even just through the children, but through the Maranatha workers, through the church members, and even through our bus driver, who, he was not Adventist, he was Catholic, but he got out of the vehicle and started working on the wall with us to the point that we actually had to persuade him away from the building so we can actually get to the hotel when the workday was done. But going back to the children, most of them didn't even go to church. Their families didn't really attend the Adventist church. But I'm sure many of them learned not only through the Bible stories, but by our actions as missionaries, by playing, by talking, by showing God's character despite the language barrier. And we showed them the love of Christ, and they showed us what Jesus meant when he said, "For such is the kingdom of heaven." To be that light in a foreign country and to love in a strange land, ministry is not just built from the work of hands, but by the actions of the heart. And I hope that now, since that church has full walls and is nearly finished, those children, those people, are able to look upon that building and remember for a long time the joy that was made during its construction. Now that's would be my testimony, but Abby, es tu toca.
Hello. So, I want to share a little bit about my experience on the mission trip. And I'm going to be honest, before I went, I really struggled with the doubt. Even though my first mission trip to Puerto Rico went really well and it was amazing, I couldn't shake this feeling that maybe I wasn't supposed to go. I kept asking myself, what if this isn't where God wants me to be? What if I'm not ready? But when I talked with my parents, they told me, you won't regret it. And so I decided to trust, even though I didn't fully understand. When we got to Peru, the big project we worked on was helping build a church. And that was amazing to see buildings come together and to see that one day it would be filled with worship and praise for God. But honestly, that's not where I felt God the most. Where I felt him most clearly was through the kids, where they would wait for us to come play with them, their joy, their laughter, and the way they welcomed us openly. It reminded me that God was already there in that place, long before we showed up. It reminded me that he doesn't just move through buildings or projects, but through people, through relationships, and through love. For me, the kids were like a living reminder that God is present everywhere, even in moments that seem small. They showed me that this mission trip isn't just about what we build with our hands. It's about the connections we build with God in our hearts. So yes, my parents are right. I do not regret going. In fact, I'm so thankful that I went because the kids had taught me something and I had learned something about God himself. Thank you.
Hey, y'all. Okay, so everyone here has heard about agape love, correct? Okay, well, I'm going to read you the Google definition of it. Agape love is a Greek term referring to a selfless, unconditional, and sacrificial love that seeks the best for others without expectation of reciprocation. It is an action of that will, a choice to do good for another rather than a mere feeling or emotion. This divine form of love, exemplified by God's love for humanity, and is seen as the highest and most complete form of love in Christianity, manifesting as kindness, generosity, forgiveness, and a willingness to make a personal sacrifice for the sake of others. Now, growing up, I hear this term a lot. You know, going to camp, we always had the agape feast where you serve others. But I don't think I ever really understood what agape love was until I went to Peru. Going to Peru, like Audrey said, I expected to work on a church every day, you know, go work from sun up to sundown. Not really, but that's what it felt like sometimes. And then we'd go home and do the tours or whatever. But that was not the case. Instead, like I said, I truly found or felt what agape love was. My first realization of this was when we met the other half of our group in Atlanta. None of us knew each other, but we had one thing in common. We're gonna go do God's work. Throughout Peru, I've seen agape love in many different ways, including our group leader, Maria, those we worked with, and the kids. Our leader someone who I felt really represented a Christian. She cared for every person on the mission trip, and she barely even knew us, and already loved us, you could tell. I don't know if they were supposed to work with us on the church, but she was there every second, always doing something. If she wasn't helping translate, she was in her own little corner building brick or doing whatever she wanted. She just wanted to help out, and I love seeing that. We also had 3 other men who we worked with. They didn't speak much English, but we used other ways to communicate. We'd joke around using motions or whatever, or they'd yell Josephina to a guy named Joseph. But they'd also communicate instructions by gesturing or stuff like that. A few days into the trip, one of the people, Frank, we're trying to communicate and stuff, and the very next day, he had told me that he had downloaded a translation app so that it'd be easier to communicate. I seen kindness and the Holy Spirit through them, not because of what they said, but because of what they did, their gestures, the way that they smiled, and the way that they appreciated everything that we did. Now, the kids. They were truly a blessing. After school, every day, we'd have a group hanging around just waiting for some of us to go play with them. And by the end of the week, we're all basically just waiting for them too. These kids knew very little English, but they showed love in more ways than I can count. I remember one of the first days we were there, this one little boy came up to me while I was standing on I was building the wall, and he had handed me a piece of candy, and I was like, no, it's okay. And he insisted. He was like, take the piece of candy. So I ate it. Well, later I found out that they'd gotten into Brooke's stash of candy. But, it's the thought that counts. Later on that week, we also had a little boy, or one of the kids, bring us a bag of fruit. I can't remember what it's called, but it's something that you peel, but they gave it to us and insisted that, we had it. Very, very sweet. And then one of the things that made my heart melt was every day whenever we'd leave the work site, these kids would run up and hug us, and they'd say, adios, amigos, or amigos. We were friends. Friends who couldn't talk to each other, but still understood one another. Our last day in Pucallpa was sad. Saying goodbye to a church that showed appreciation through hugs and smiles and their different gestures, whether it's handing Brooke a kid or because she had smiled at it or tried to get it the week before. It was the things that they did that showed us that they loved us. It was an eye-opener for me. The selflessness, kindness, and compassion, it reminded me of God's love for us, the agape love. John 15:11-12, if you'd like to turn with me in your Bibles, says, these things have I spoken unto you, that my joy might remain in you, and that your joy might be full. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I loved you. Now, B, es tu toca.
Good morning. I just want to first off thank everyone that let me come on this trip, because originally I wasn't even part of the group going. I had no idea about it. I was completely clueless about it. And then a little under a month before, Brooklyn asked me if I wanted to go, and I said yes. I had no clue what I was doing or anything. I just said yes. And so I had to renew my passport, all that, within less than a month. And it was really a miracle for me, because it was really hard getting my passport. I had a lot of problems with that. And then I got it in time and then went. And another thing that was a miracle for me was, since I was going alone, I was staying with another member of the church from the other group going with us. And I knew I either was going to like him or not like him, and either way I was going to have to deal with it. And either way, he ended up actually being probably my best friend I've ever had. And I don't think we ever, it was rare occasion we weren't with each other doing something, and it was that was a miracle for me. But I saw Jesus at work a lot in us building the church because it really empowered me to work my hardest, and especially one of the last days I was there, I just really was having a lot of fun working. Like, I really enjoyed it. And I was able to, I didn't do much with the kids, but I was able to do some stuff with them, and they were, I learned some interesting things about them, even though half the time, more than half the time, I didn't know what they were saying. And one of the things I learned is that they go into high school when they are 11 years old there, and I'm pretty sure they get done when they're 15 or 16. I can't remember exactly. And it was hard at sometimes just learning how to work with the people because I didn't speak their language, but it worked out. I did a lot of things I would have not thought I would have had to do, speaking the tiny Spanish I knew, and then using just different gestures and stuff. And up on the screen, this is one of the members of the other church. His name's Patrick. He wasn't the guy I was staying with, but he was probably one of the coolest people I've ever met before. He had been, I don't think there was a place that dude hasn't been, and so he showed me a lot of cool pictures and stuff and knew a lot of stuff, and it was really cool. And then I think I have a picture of it up here. Or that's just Machu Picchu. That's probably my favorite picture I took when we went there. That's probably the coolest experience I had doing that. And then the next picture, that is Dave. He's the one I was staying with. That's me and him. He's holding a lamb, and I'm holding a baby alpaca. And it was just, that was the main thing for me, was because I didn't know how it was going to be being alone, but with him it made it really fun for me and stuff, and he's definitely probably my best friend now. But I definitely feel like participating in this mission trip really brought me closer to Jesus a lot, and I just feel like he really worked in my life on this mission trip. Thank you.
I am so proud of these kids. So proud. I would say, just repeating what these kids said. We went with the mission of building a church, and we made lifelong friendships without even speaking the same language. In Atlanta, watching how our groups came together, I was super nervous for B. I was hoping that he would get along with his bunkmate, and just we got to meet Miss Ann, mine and Hadley's bunkmate, and they were just really warm towards us, crashing in on their mission trip, and as we got to know each other and working together, they're like, we needed you guys as much as you needed us, to make our numbers, but also the way that we lifted each other up, and it was just wonderful. When we were laying block, they started off telling us some Spanish words so that we could ask for the supplies that we need. So we had to learn the word mezcla, and mezcla was the mortar that they would bring. So you would hear, muy mezcla, por favor, and here would come Maximo or Joseph or Frank, and they would shovel it up there for you. Those three gentlemen were the Maranatha guys that they had hired to point us in the right direction, because none of us had ever built a church before. And they never were impatient with us. They made the work site fun and looked out for our best interests. And I know, even though we were technically the ones laying the block, they worked harder than any of us there, just keeping us, answering all of our questions, keeping us supplied with the materials that we needed, and then fixing things when we couldn't figure it out. And as they said, we had several people from the community come. The bus driver, he was hired just to take us to and from the job site and stay there in case we had an emergency. So he could have spent his days making his money, chilling in the bus and having him a good siesta, but instead he got out there and he sweated alongside us, working with us, and did it with a smile on his face. And like they said, that one day we were on a Miss Marie, our guide, she was like, we got to leave at 4:30, and so we're all sitting on the bus, and she goes, Jason, come on, we've got to go, it's past 4:30. So just pulling him away from that was, their whole heart was in it, and this wasn't even something that they were paid to do or assigned to do. Other people in the group, Miss Maria was telling us that a gentleman that went to the evangelical church up the way, he just saw us working in his little community on this church and wanted to come help. So he just appeared, and he came every single day after that first day he came. 4 or 5 other different community guys that probably could have been out finding ways to make money and provide for their family, sacrificed their time, and worked alongside of us, laughing and joking and trying to understand our English while we tried to understand their Spanish. There was a guy from Argentina that was a member of the church we were building, and his father was in the hospital passing away on Friday. We learned of this, and he had been working with us the whole time. And Friday was our last day. We were trying to get it done, and so that we could say we got all our blocks laid. And it just happened to come out in conversation that that's where his dad was, and they were like, why are you here? Go be with your dad. And he was like, I don't want to leave you guys by yourself. And so they were like, you need to go say bye to your dad. And he did, and his dad passed away. But just the fact that he was willing to sacrifice that last goodbye to his dad and help us build the church, it just meant it was another act of love that wasn't spoken in English, but was touching. There was I don't know his name, because in Spanish you refer to everybody as brother or sister when they're in the church, but he was from a nearby church, and he volunteered to drive us on his tri-bike, which is our mode of transportation. So when on Fridays, when I had to go get stuff for the VBS, the food and little activities for the kids, he drove us all around. He was like, this place has the best prices, and he just took so much of his time to take us to get these supplies. And then when we did the first 2 stories, which was Daniel, and then Daniel and the Lion's Den, and the 3 Hebrews, we did the lion craft, and he stayed up cutting the wood to have the lion wood bodies ready for us for that next day. And his wife was the one that put his daughter in my arms. I had spent all day Saturday trying to woo her over. She was 2 years old. Her name was Aurelie. She was cute as a button. And so that Sabbath, she finally warmed up to me. Well, the next Sabbath, his wife come up and just put her in my arms and just gave me the biggest smile. And that little girl grabbed my neck and kissed me so big. Oh, you couldn't have said anything with words that would have made me feel any better or more loved in that moment. They were so wonderful. They felt like family. Speaking of VBS, the teams, how they came together. Mr. Patrick that B showed a picture of, he was our guard. We had Dave, who was our king, and they did play multiple roles, but Mr. Azid, which he was a quieter gentleman, but he all of them came together and played their part in the VBS skits, and the kids would interact. I have a funny story from preparing for VBS. We went Friday we wanted to do a craft with the theme of the story, and for the three Hebrews, we decided for them to make a musical instrument. And because of the resources we had, we decided on drums, and we took washi tape. And so we were gonna get these colorful buckets or bowls, and they would decorate the outside with the washi tape and stickers and whatnot. And so Miss Maria's like, yeah, I know where we can go. So we go to the store. Our brother, he took us on the tri-bike, and we go up all the way into the top level, and there's all these plastic containers. And I was looking for a thicker plastic and colorful so that the kids could choose different colors. And as I'm picking them up, checking the stiffness of the plastic or whatever, I was like, Miss Maria, I think this will work. And she was like, oh yes, they will really like that. It's a very useful gift too for having a double use, so they could use it in their household. And I was like, oh, this is great, perfect. And as we were looking at them, she was like, do you know what this is? And I said, well, it looked like a bowl to me. And I was like, a salad bowl? And she was like, no, this is the pee-pee poo-poo bowls. So I was like, well, that wasn't what I had in mind. But if you say this is what they need and this is useful and that they would want it, then that's what we'll do. But we ended up talking about it, and we did not get them the little potty bowls. We got them a different bowl. But with that being said, we did do the drums, and even the adults wanted to decorate after we had leftovers from the kids. The adults wanted to, because they use these containers. They use what they can get, and the adults wanting to decorate them and take them home for them. It was a bowl, y'all. It was a plastic bowl, and just how they are so happy with in their simplicity, and I would even say poverty of life. They kept smiles on their faces. They always had a hearty, warm, welcoming hug or a kind word to say. And with that being said, we got the church finished. We did our VBS. And in my mind, I don't know what I was picturing that the church would look like in the end. When we got there, it was a steel structure with a metal roof and concrete floor. And when we went the first week, we had laid 3 layers of blocks, so the wall was about this high. And then so I'm thinking, how are we gonna, when we get it all the way to the top, how are we gonna tie it in? How are we gonna seal it off? Well, when we got done, they don't even put windows in the church. They leave it open because they don't have air conditioning. And they did have electrical outlets for lights, and they were going to put 2 fans in the top, but they don't have air conditioning. They weren't going to close it off. It wasn't going to be insulated. And when we went, we sat on blocks on 2 ends with a 2x8 board across, and that was our benches. No backs, no cushions. And a lot of these people walked out of the jungle to church each week. And I was looking this first Sabbath compared to the second Sabbath, and a lot of them were wearing the same clothes. And I thought, how selfish am I? Got a whole closet full of clothes, and sometimes I complain about not having anything to wear. Or come to church and, well, I was cold, or the preacher talked too long, but these people, the sacrifices that they made, like I said, they didn't have to come and work with us, help us build their church, but they were so proud and they were so thankful. And all of them came each week, and even the kids, as they said, through the week, the kids came and they would help. And just seeing their simple way of life and how they were so happy, even when they didn't have all the luxuries that we're so used to. They don't even have running water or a flushing toilet, as we found out. It was an outhouse with a concrete slab with a hole cut out in the middle of it, and that was our bathroom. But anyway, I forgot what I was going to say next to wrap it up. It left me. I had a thought I was going with that. But, just like Abby said, I hope that that church is a lasting monument to those people, that there's people all over the world that share their same beliefs and love them. And I hope that we get to meet all of them again in heaven one day. And I'm thankful for, I know what I was going to say. I'm thankful to this church for the opportunity that you gave us. At the end of the slide was Brianna and her babies holding up a welcome back home sign. And I received texts from different ones of you throughout the week saying, we're praying for you, we're so proud of you, your progress is coming along great. And I just appreciate the support that you guys gave us and the experience that you allowed us to have. We love you so much.
Thank you guys for sharing that. I get the joy of being the last one to go, which just means I get to make this wonderful announcement. I don't know if you guys have checked your WhatsApp in the last 4 minutes. Miss Maria just sent a picture, and she said, thank you, Maranatha Group, North Carolina Group, Pastor Roy, for organizing this mission trip that not only blessed Pucallpa, also blessed another congregation by Sacred Valley, Cusco, Peru. And the reason she's saying that, I know you probably can't see it, but there's little kids holding up the little lion that we showed them how to make in Pucallpa. She has shown another church how to make the lion, and they just did that this Sabbath. So, because this is not the church that we went to. This was a completely other church across the country that just made our lions. So, you guys can look at that after church if you want, but she just sent that. Huh? Yeah, I didn't play Ninja, so I didn't know that. My experience begins in the spring in regards to this particular mission trip, in that I wasn't sure if I was going to go or not. I know Gigi had been talking to Brooklyn about going on the mission trip and had been discussing my possibility of going with them. But I just wasn't sure because of my job and getting enough time off, or if somebody else was going to want to go. 2 weeks is a long time to have off from work for those of us that do work. And a lot of times, people, they like to take vacation in summer. And so I just wasn't sure. And so I was talking to my boss in the spring. And I said, hey, just so you know, there's a possibility that I might go on a mission trip in the summer. Would that be okay? It'd be about 2 weeks. And without missing a beat, there was no hesitation. There was no, hey, we'll see, see what everybody else is doing. Kyle was like, oh, no, you got to go. He was like, you've got to go. You will not regret that trip. He himself had gone the year before to Costa Rica and had done a mission trip with his church, and he's like, no, you've got to go. We're going to make it happen. You don't have to worry about work at all, which eased my mind some. Obviously, I still had to worry about if I had enough PTO saved up to be able to go, but it eased my mind to know that he was willing to cover for me, if you will, those 2 weeks. In my job, I have several chronic patients that I see every week that are people that I work with, and they're kind of used to working with me. They're traumatic brain injuries, spinal cord injuries, and over the last year, I've been training some of the PTAs to also be able to see those people, and by the time that we went, I felt comfortable leaving the care of those patients to the assistants so that they wouldn't miss out on their therapy while I was gone. And so that was something that I felt had been a blessing, that those PTAs were there and that they had learned throughout this whole year so that they could take over. So anyway, so now I've got the okay from my boss that I can go on this mission trip. But then I was thinking, do I even bring anything to the mission trip? Am I even able, like Abby said, am I worthy to go on this mission trip? Some of you might not know this. Well, actually, I think you all know this. I'm not exactly the friendliest of guys. I'm not a very outgoing person. My face doesn't say, come and talk to me. That is not what my face says. When I met my wife at camp, I told her what you're seeing now, because I was a very, very friendly person at camp for those 3 months, what you're seeing now is not me. And she said, I don't believe you. Year 2 of marriage, and she said, you lied to me. No, I don't know. I don't think she actually said that, but that's the joke that's been going around, that I, at camp, was very friendly. Normally, not so much. So I was like, what am I going to bring to a mission trip? To a trip where you're supposed to be bringing people in, you know? You're supposed to be open and getting people to see Jesus through you. And so I was thinking about it. I was praying about it. I was asking, is this really what I need to do? Asking God for guidance. And, you know, God provided everything that I would need. He provided the time off from work. He provided the passports when we needed them. He calmed my worries so that I was no longer anxious about anything. Brooklyn took care of almost everything we needed to do to get down there. She organized it for us. It was very easy to follow. So everything was calm, and I had calmed down, and I was ready to go. And then Brooklyn threw another wrench in the plan, because she sent a text, and the text was saying all the different jobs and responsibilities of the organizational chart, if you will. And so Pastor Roy, he had said, you know, we want to make sure we know who's in charge and who's the leader. So he was going to be the director of the whole thing, and Brooklyn was the assistant director. And she had nominated me to be the construction supervisor to build this church. I am not in construction. The limited construction I have done is in college, where I was a gopher for a siding guy, which meant that I maybe put up siding 1 or 2 times, but most of the time I was cutting it, and that was about it, or going to get things. And one of the famous sayings that he told me while I was working for him is, it doesn't have to be exact. We're not building a church. Well, guess what? We're going to build a church. So I'm like, what? I don't know anything about construction. I don't know anything about laying block. I don't know these people that we're going with. I don't know them. I know the kids. I can tell kids what to do all day. That's fine. But other adults, I don't know about that. But then I was like, you know what? It's not for me to really be in charge. It's really that I need to trust God, that whatever He decides, whatever He wants me to do, that I am open and willing to do that thing. And so I gave that worry, that anxiety, I gave it back to God, and I said, you know what, I'm trying to take all this worry from you. I need to give it back to you. So I gave it back to Him. And you know, that happens so many times in our lives today. I don't know if you guys do this. I do it all the time. I give anxiety, I give worry. I say, God, take it away from me, and then I grab it back. And then I say, God, you know what? You're right. You're in charge. I give it to him, and then I grab and hold it back. Or I say, just let me worry about it just a little bit more. So many times, in fact, when I get up to speak here in front of you all, I have worries about, am I going to say the right things? Is the sermon going to be the right words to reach someone? And so every morning, every time I'm up here, in case you haven't noticed, I always pray that the words that are spoken are not my own, but God's. And it seems to, without fail, somebody, one of you, after I'm done speaking, whether you're being nice or whether it's true, I believe it's true, you come to me and you say, I really needed to hear what you had to say. I needed to hear that today. Or it was a blessing to hear your sermon. And sometimes in my head is, were we listening to the same sermon? Were you really listening to me talk? Because I felt like I did terrible. Or I felt like I didn't say enough. But yet I know, and every single time I am reminded of this, that no matter what we say, no matter what we do, God can take over. He can take what we're doing for him as long as we give it to him. And he can make it so it's a blessing to those that are listening or to those that we're around. So, thinking of that, I decided, you know what? I just need to give it to God. I need to give everything to him, and I just need to be present for this experience and just wait to know and to feel God's hand. Now you've heard or you've seen a lot of the videos, a lot of the pictures. You've heard about the kids. I must confess I was not with the kids much because I was the construction supervisor. I had to be part of the working, which I will say this, all of the kids worked incredibly hard. They talk about the little kids, but they were all in there. They were all lane block. You'll see that here in a few minutes. But every single one of them, even though they didn't know what we didn't know what we were doing, the first day I think we got a 2-minute instruction on how to lay block and then was told, go for it. After the week had gone, I told my brother that I started out as a complete novice, and I think maybe I'm at an apprentice level at this point for laying block. But as you can see on the screen there, that is what we started with. In fact, prior to us getting there, you see the concrete slab, that wasn't even there. It was a dirt, and then they poured the concrete a couple months before we got there. But that's what we started with, okay? First day, Maximo, he was the construction guy. He was introduced to us. He got a goop of mortar, of mezcla, laid it on the block, put the block on, tapped it a couple times, and said, that's how you lay block. And he did that maybe 3 more blocks, and then we were told to continue. So after the first day, see if I can get a picture, that was during the first day. You can see we're laying, we're up to 3 rows already. That's the first day of block. I will say that particular side of the church was very hot. The sun was beating down. This is, again, Friday when we got there. The sun was beating on us. By the time that we got done, when I got to the hotel, I just laid on the floor and didn't even go to sleep. I just laid there for about 20 minutes. I think I called Gigi and was just talking to her, but it was exhausting work. All right? We worked very, very hard. We're bending over. We're laying these blocks. And the thing with laying blocks, some of you might know this. Some of you probably have laid it. I had never done it. You need to get them level, okay? It's important to get them level. It's important that you put the blocks in the right distance away from each other so that the whole building goes up strong. And that's what Maximo and Frank and Joseph were doing that first day, was making sure that everything we did was level. So you'd put the block down, and there's a little string that would say how high the block needed to be. You tap it on one side, this side goes up. You tap it down on this side goes up. And then you're like, well, okay, and you tap it again a little bit harder. Now suddenly it's that far below the line. So then you got to take the block back off. So you take it off. You scrape all the mortar that you already put down. You put more mortar on. You put the block back on. It's again not level. So then you're tapping on the different sides. You tap over here, it tilts this way. You tap over here, it tilts that way. You tap it in, this side goes out too far. Block goes in 3 different directions. It's in 3 dimensions, and the more you would tap, the more it would get out of line, and then you'd have to take the block back off because you were too low. In fact, I saw the first day Maximo had to take a whole line of blocks off and redo them all because we were completely out of alignment. But you can see, even despite all those struggles, despite not knowing what we're doing, in one day, we had 4 lines of block put up. In one day, starting at 8 o'clock in the morning, 1 hour for lunch, not even, and then ending at 4:30, 4 lines of block go up. And then, we don't have any English. At that point, our translator was gone. So the whole afternoon, our translator's not there. The 4th line, you have to have concrete in. We didn't know that until Maximo, with gestures and with different one-word things in Spanish, told us we need to put these blocks, these special types of blocks, we need to tie the rebar, we need to put all these other things in. So we learned as we went. Okay, now we've got 4 lines. And now on the second day, when we're there, you can see we're starting to put windows. We're starting to put windows. You would think that putting windows would make it go faster because there's not as many blocks to lay, right? Not so much. You can see them shaking their heads because the windows, they have to be level. They have to be even. So not only are you laying the block, when you go to the window, to the end block, it's got to be level up and down as well across and this way. And so we spent more times adjusting where the windows were going than actually laying. We felt lucky when there was just to put a block in, and you didn't have to go over rebar, you didn't have to go over conduit, you didn't have to worry about a window. That one block was the favorite block to put in for me because it was just set it in. It was wonderful. But despite not having a translator at times because of Maria off, we were able to complete so much there on that second day, getting all the way up through the windows. And even to the point where, and the kids will agree, we started to have a lot of fun with Maximo, Frank, and Joseph. They would yell at Joseph, like Brooklyn was saying, and call him Josephina because he would make some kind of mistake. Or he was the main one that was supposed to be bringing the mezcla to us, and if he wasn't there fast enough, you would hear from across the corner Maximo yelling at him, "Mezcla!" And we could all enjoy and laugh the different jokes that they would make, even though we couldn't understand them. There was one time where I was standing, had just finished laying my block. I was looking for a level, and I happened to glance over, and Joseph was using the level, and Maximo wanted the level, and he didn't know where it was, so he yelled, "Where's the level?" And I told him Joseph's got it. And so he went over there and asked for it. Joseph refused because he was finishing up. And it was just funny the way, because Maximo's the head, he's the supervisor, the way he was asking for the level, he was just like, "May I please have the level now?" After Joseph got done with it. So just being able to see that interaction and enjoy that interaction, despite the language barrier, was very nice. So anyway, so you see, second day, we got up past the windows, and then we were over the doors, and that's Frank right there. And then we're getting up into the peak, and then we get all the way through, and we complete the building. The first day we thought we were doing great. 4 lines, we're going to have this done by Wednesday. But it slows down with the windows, and it slowed down with the concrete layers. There was one day that we only laid 2 layers there at the top because of how slow it was going. So the fact that we were able to finish it by Friday, the day before, was really good. And then the church on Saturday, we could have church in an enclosed church, was great. And it helped our VBS because Rahab could throw her red cord out the window. So we planned it that way. And the other thing that I want to mention, this is a different church in that same village. So this church is going to be the Adventist church. And I was talking to Maria, and she said this is the only block building in that whole village. The only sturdy, permanent, really, structure in that whole village. If there's going to be a storm in the village, if there's going to be anything, people can go to this building and be safe. This would be the place where they could have, and she said, having community events for the community like we did with VBS, community members came. This is something that the people of the village are going to be seeing every single day, and it's different. And the difference is something that is tangible that then will make them ask questions about who are these people. This is the other church in the village. That's the evangelical church. I was just walking by, so I took a picture of it. And then the last picture is of me with Joseph. That was the first day we were working. I think they were amazed at how tall I was because he wanted to take a picture. Frank did. He was like, "You need to take a picture." And then Joseph is standing on a 2-inch lip too. So I said he was cheating. But anyways. We went there. We went to Peru. Obviously, I know all these people, very close with several of them. But the group that we went with, the other people, we didn't know. We didn't know the other church. We didn't know anybody. And as we went down there, if you think about construction, if you think about building a church or building any building, and it's hot, and there's tiredness, there's potential for tempers to be frayed, right? There's potential for maybe a little bit of friction to happen, especially with people that you don't know. But the thing was, and this is where it became nice that we were with other fellow Adventists, with people that we shared the same beliefs were, is that our dynamic with everyone around us was so open, was so friendly, was very much that we are going to do everything in our power to contribute to building this church. That it doesn't matter what we're asked to do, we're going to do it with an open and friendly smile. Like I said, the kids were all up. They were all helping. The girls were over there lifting blocks up. They were helping lift the scaffolding. Even some men, some of us were saying, "No, girls, we got it." Girls were like, "No, we're here to work." And they did, didn't you? But there was no arguments. There was no yelling. It was just people working together to build and to do God's work. And that's one of the things that I took away is we went as a group of strangers, people that we would never have met in our life at all to begin with. And we left as friends. The last night we were there, Patrick, you saw a picture of him. Patrick came to my room and was saying goodbye because we were going to be leaving at 4 in the morning. They were leaving at a different time. He came to say goodbye, and the normal way I say goodbye to people is say, "See you later." Well, I'm probably not going to see Patrick later. So I said, "See you," and then I was like, wait a second. I'm not going to see him. But I don't want to say goodbye because that seems kind of permanent, right? But then in my head, I thought, but this is my brother. This is somebody that I will see later. It might not be here. But when we get to heaven, when we get to the promised land, we can meet our people that we went on this mission trip with, and I believe that we will. We will see them again under the tree of life. We will see the people from Peru that we met that we will probably never see again here. We will see them there, and we will be able to tell each other what this trip meant and what we have done, and we'll be able to say that it was a blessing to us. So I did tell Patrick, I did say, see you later. I said, if not here, then in heaven. And you know, that's the biggest blessing for me, is knowing that going on this trip, while it was hard, while it was fun, while it was engaging, is the connections and the knowledge that I will see these people later. That these people are not going to be out of my life and out of thought. That the people that we touched hopefully will touch others, and there will be a huge gathering in heaven from 2 weeks spent in Peru. Let's close with singing our closing song, I Will Sing of My Redeemer.